Hello and welcome to another episode of The Eden's Gem. I hope these episodes are blessing you. I hope you're sharing them. I have lots of fun recording them. As we always do, we want to give a shout out to our production team. Without them, these episodes would not be coming to your way. And so, Bless Production and Eyes Have Not Seen, shout out to them. I've been telling you to give a shout out to them, and I don't see it in the comments. So today, let me know that you appreciate all the work that they do behind the scenes to bring these episodes to you, and that you are indeed giving them a shout out where they can see. Welcome to another episode. This month, as a community, the Beauties of Eden community, our theme is Abiding April. If you're new to this YouTube channel, it's called The Eden's Gem, but it's birthed out of a ministry that we have called Beauties of Eden. And this is our voice out here on YouTube that is dubbed The Eden's Gem. That's why we get that from. And every month we do pick up a theme. I know we're already in the second week of April, but I wanted us to look at our theme for April, which is Abiding April. If you're not part of our community, we do weekly, every Saturday morning, we get deep dive into something we've called Conversations in the Garden. That's where we really talk deep. It's an hour long where we talk deep about our theme. And every week, with the help of the Holy Spirit, we're able to just excavate more. Excavate is the word that I use because that's what is used to pull out gems. And that's what this channel is all about. So this month, we're talking about abiding. And when I look at abiding and where I live in North America, it's also a season of spring where things that were hitting when the weather was cold and the ground was so hard that things could not pop up. All of a sudden, places that you look that was dry, you look and it's greenery and there's beautiful plants that are popping up everywhere around. Trees are beginning to bud with leaves. And so it also is a reminder for me that times and seasons, according to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there is a time and a season for everything. And this particular broadcast or this particular channel is talking about Eden's Gem. We talk about excavating and looking around for things that are buried to pull it out. This particular session, this particular episode, we want to talk about something that I've called, am I just a dot in the soil? Again, based on the season where things are popping up, it is also a time, as Ecclesiastes talk about, it's a time for planting and a time for harvest. And I believe that it is a time for planting. You see, when a farmer goes to plant, they are mindful of the seasons because there are seasons that they know that if I put one seed in the ground, maybe 3 months later, 6 months later, sometimes a year later, sometimes for certain plants or certain crops or certain trees, it's years later. And I believe that when the farmer is putting that maybe one kernel of corn in the ground, it seems like it's just a little dot in the soil. That is what I've been, as I'm abiding, that's what I'm focusing on. The question that I'm asking myself, Anede, are you just one speck of a human being that God has just dropped here on earth? Or just a little corn kernel that was just dropped in a soil, an ocean of people? No. You see, there are two instances in the Bible that that really, when I was abiding and looking at it, am I just a dot in the soil? The two stories that gave me hope. One is found in 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. And it talks about the children of Issachar. And the Bible says this, and I read from the King James. It says that the children of Issachar and of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their command. I love it. When you look at Issachar, it was one tribe out of 12. And for the Bible to say that 200 men, it looked like they were just a dot in a soil. But these 200 men had positioned themselves to gain capacity and to add so much value by understanding times that they were able to be as a dot, the ones that told Israel what to do at any given time, because they knew what season to plant, what season to harvest, what season to water. Do you, as a dot, know what season that we're in and what to do in order for other people and for the nations and the earth to benefit? Because I bet to differ that I'm just a dot, but this dot is supposed to produce a harvest that other people will benefit from. The other story that really blesses me, and a lot of us give credit to the woman in the story, but I like to look at the man that started it to begin with, and that's the story of Esther and Esther's uncle, Mordecai. You see, Mordecai was not an ordinary man that just lived his life as just a dot in the soil. But this was a man that was at the gate of a king. He didn't have any position. But because Mordecai understood the times, he was able to influence Esther. Yes, I'm talking about the proverbial Queen Esther that we all give credit to. But if it wasn't for Mordecai, because remember at some point he had to remind Esther that, do you know that maybe God has put you here, or it doesn't say God, but do you know that you are in this palace, in this kingdom for such a time as this? So when I ask the question, am I just a dot in the soil? I'm asking this question as a dot, as a seed, as something that God formed from the soil. Am I asking, and do I understand that I can make a difference even though I'm just a dot in the soil? I want to share something with you. As I'm recording this episode, it is actually a Saturday, even though you will be watching it on a Monday. Yes, it's pre-recorded. It is actually April 13th. It's a Saturday. The Friday before that, which happened to be April 12th, I was privileged to witness something that was mind-blowing, and that's where I actually got this episode, Am I Just a Dot in the Soil? My children's school were celebrating 100 years of existence, and we were privileged to get a documentary, which is 8 minutes, an 8-minute documentary as to how the school started, for us to be standing there to be privileged to celebrate 100 years. And as I was watching the documentary, I was just blessed that it was a time in the 1800s, so this is before the actual celebration of the 100 years, that the state of Illinois had mandated for schools to begin in communities. Where I live, which happens to be part of the Cook County in the Illinois area or the greater Chicago area, they were protesting because there were farmers at that time, and they needed their children to help on the farm. So the farmers, or the areas that were predominantly farming area, which happens to be where I live now, I can't believe that it used to be a farm area. But the farmers were protesting to start schools because they needed their children to help them on the farm. But this one farmer, called Farmer Brown, when he found out what was happening, he decided to give and donate a quarter of an acre land of his property for the school to be started. They built a one room where 4 children, mostly his children, started. There was no grade. They just all started in that one room that was located. Then another woman by the name Mrs. Clark came along, and she funded and said, well, instead of this one room to be a classroom, how about we build? And she supported and financed the entire thing. Mrs. Clark, now using her own fund, imported some furniture from England in the year 1924. And that's when our school district started. And as we celebrated 100 years, this is what I was standing there and looking at the beautiful ceremony of us gathering and all the students and the family that were there. We went outside on the school property and we made a 100 and then D and the district's number. And the children did that. And there was an aerial view picture that was taken to commemorate that. And as I was standing there, I leaned over to one of the parents and I said to her, can you believe that this was started by one man? One man. And then she said, as I watched the documentary, tears began to roll down my eyes. And I asked this, one person started this. It became a snowball effect for another woman to come in and say, because you started it, this is what I'm going to do. And that snowball effect. And if you live in a place where it snows, we make this little tiny ball, and then what snowball effect is you roll it in the snow, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and children are able to build snowman and other things with it. But it starts off with that little roll. If the world is going to change, you and I should stop looking at ourselves as just a dot. It is a season where, like the children of Issachar, it is a season where, like the Mordecaiers, we have to go beyond, it's just lonely old me. What difference can I make? I'm sure that when Farmer Brown gave that 1/4 acre of a land, he didn't know that he was doing something that another or generations will come, because 100 years is a whole new generation. I'm not related to Farmer Brown, but because of what one dot decided to do, my children are benefiting from it. Because of what Mrs. Clark decided to do, now hundreds of children are enrolled in this school. And this is what blew my mind, that it is ranked as one of the school district in all the states. I found out yesterday that is self-funded and lacks nothing. You know why that is? Because I believe when they said that, they probably didn't know that. But from a Christian perspective, I believe that the spirit of generosity from one man is what is taking care of that school district. So I want to ask you again, today when you look at yourself, are you just a dot in the soil, or are you more than a dot? That if you avail yourself and I avail myself, maybe 100 years from now, a generation will be saying thank you and celebrating because we went beyond just me. God bless you. I'll see you in the next episode.